And for some crazy reason, I decided to apply for a sexual empowerment course, a 1-year sexual empowerment course, because that's where you go at 50. And this woman was
Hey, why not?
exactly. And this woman was interviewing me, and she said, "So, what do you desire?" And I was on the phone. I still remember sitting on the steps of this apartment I was renting in Cambridge, Mass. And it was just complete silence. I just started to cry, like these tears are trickling down my face. And she decided to tell me what the definition of desire was. And I got so mad. I said, "I know what the word means. I do. I know what the word means. I just don't have any."
Mm.
And it was this moment where she let me sit in it for a little while, and she said, "You'll find them." And I could only find them through finding who I was, who my authentic self was. Because I had given that, I kind of got lost in the shuffle of life.
Welcome to Her Unshakable Confidence with dynamic mother-daughter duo Simone and Olivia Knego, where they discuss the secrets of transformation and how to build bold confidence and unwavering resilience. From intimate conversations with inspiring guests to sharing their personal journeys of triumph and challenge, Simone and Olivia create a supportive space where every woman is encouraged to rise above her fears and love the woman in the mirror. Tune into Her Unshakable Confidence and join this special journey of connection and growth. It's like catching up with old friends who inspire you to be bravely and uniquely you.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Her Unshakable Confidence. I'm Simone Knego.
And I'm Olivia Knego.
And today we have a special guest joining us, Kathy Washburn. She is a highly regarded and influential life coach, speaker, and podcaster specializing in positive psychology, emotional health, and post-traumatic growth. Her transformative insights have resonated with over 30,000 individuals worldwide through her words, stage presence, and engaging podcast, Investment of Self. With a diverse range of certifications in positive psychology, coaching, and neuroscience, coupled with an impressive 25 years of investment experience, Kathy is recognized as a leading authority in her field. Personally, she enjoys adventures with her partner Raj and special trips with her adult sons. Music moves her, and nature is her playground. Kathy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's an honor. Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Absolutely. We had a really interesting start to our meeting today where none of our technology was working, but here we are. We made it work. So we're happy to be here. So I really want to start with more about what you do. So, I mean, I've read your website. And I just kind of want to hear in your words what you do and what you love to do.
Mm. I love to help people see the good and right within them. I think we live in a world that we're constantly focusing on what's wrong with us. So with that positive psychology spin, I help people focus on what's good and right within them. When I first started coaching, I worked primarily with cancer survivors. And then I stumbled upon this research that really just blew a door open for me. It's Lydia Temeshok's work, and it's about type C behavioral patterns, which we're all pretty familiar with. They are people pleasing, emotional suppression, conflict resistance, even perfectionism. And what was mind blowing about her research is that just like a type C or a type A personality can lead people to be prone for cardiac issues, a type C behavioral patterns can lead to immune issues, including cancer. So all of a sudden I thought, wow, I still work with cancer survivors, but I really want to meet women before women when they're feeling dis-ease, but they don't have one yet. I want to meet them at that place when they're feeling something's just not right in their body. And I really think the emotional health is a lever that they can pull, just like, getting eating better and exercising, that we don't talk about enough. So that's my passion.
And you started a foundation of some sort for cancer survivors. Can you tell me more about that? Because I did read that and I was like, oh, I need to know more about this.
It's actually a community. It's called Carved by Cancer. And I'm a cancer survivor, and I have not a lot, but there's been several people that say, ouch, like, why, why do you say that? And I don't say it for the reason that first comes to mind, although if you've experienced cancer, often you are carved by it quite literally. But I was in Italy and I came across Michelangelo's statues that were still, he left them unfinished, and they believe he left them unfinished on purpose because we're never finished carving away what no longer serves us, so that we can find the gems inside. So I felt like cancer is an opportunity to carve away what no longer serves us, because it's often a moment of meeting when issues that you've stuffed, especially a type C, which I am, um, if you've stuffed that your whole life, all of a sudden you have this opportunity to be like, oh, I can play this cancer card and I can be a little different.
Do you think that you can do that with other cards as well? Because I mean, I do think you can. So let me start with that, because I am someone that stuffed my emotions down for many years. I really struggled with self-doubt. I had a very abusive boyfriend in high school, and
Mm,
he left his mark on me, and I really it didn't matter what I was doing. And as I look back now, I realize so many of the things that I did in my life was trying to figure out who I was, right? And not being successful at it because I wouldn't take on the conversation about what happened, or I
mm,
had this shame instead of saying, okay, let me talk about it. Let me figure out what I need. I just didn't do that. And I have an amazing husband, and we've been married for 31 years. Super supportive, 6 kids, super supportive, but yeah. But I didn't address it. So, but I realized finally that I needed to, and that was kind of the card that I played. It didn't have to be like it was, I had an experience that kind of led me to that, but just your thoughts on like how you've seen people transform in that way with some other kind of experience.
mm. I think there's a lot of cards you could play,
Mm.
and it's really the moment where you can say yes to whatever it is that's bubbling inside. Sometimes it is something really big like cancer or divorce, or a loss of a loved one, or a loss of a job, some kind of transition where it really encourages you to do that deep dive into, whoa, how did I become? How is that influencing who I'm being right now? And how can I actually change and be a different version of that? So I don't know. I think that awakening happens at different people's lives, and I feel like it's happening. And Olivia, you could probably speak to this better than I, but I feel like it's happening at a younger level
Mm.
now. I think, uh, Simone, you and I, we were kind of raised to just grin and bear it and power through, and those were the cards that you were dealt. Just deal with them. And I think this younger generation's like, hot no on that. I'm gonna I'm gonna address this now.
Yeah, I think it's pretty split, honestly. And I think it really depends on how and who you were raised by.
Mm.
And I think I was raised by a woman who wouldn't let me put up with stuff ever. Well, yeah.
That's
And
what a
so,
gift.
yeah, it really was. And it kind of made me stronger in the way of like, I'm able to set my own boundaries. I'm able to understand when to say no. Although it granted took, you know, I probably wouldn't agree to that statement 2 years ago. Now I would. But I would say
Mm.
like some of my friends, even today, they kind of just let life walk on them.
Mm.
I had a moment today where I was like, no, we're picking ourselves up and you can't wait. There's no waiting anymore. We have to do it right now. And if we don't do it now, it's not going to get done.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's It's interesting. We were talking last week. We were interviewing a guest, and after the interview, she got off. She goes, "I just had the biggest aha moment." She said, "For a long time, I would say that I'm a go with the flow kind of girl." And she said, "What I realized I was saying was that I'm not using my voice." And I thought that was like such a cool moment for her to
Yeah.
like realize that, wait, that's not who I want to be. This is,
Yeah. I think that I think I am a go with the flow person, first of all. But I do think I look back at a lot of moments in my life where I just accepted that it was easier to not say anything rather
Mm.
than facing the fact like, hey, it's going to be a little hard and it's going to feel a little icky at some times, that you need to speak up, because if you don't right now, you're going to live with it for like, I mean, I'm still thinking about these moments that I didn't speak up, and the ones in which I did, I don't think about them anymore.
Mm. Because you were in alignment with yourself.
Exactly.
I had a therapist say to me a couple years ago that people pleasing tendency of mine, that it might be seen as go with the flow, whatever,
Mhm.
I'm good. We can go and eat there if you want. Doesn't matter. She said to me, it makes you untrustworthy. And I was just like, oh no, 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 no. I am not untrustworthy.
Mhm.
I was in a marriage where I was betrayed for years. I was like, no, 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 I'm not that person. And the realization that, oh, yes, I was untrustworthy in a relationship because people couldn't rely on me to tell them the good and the
Mhm.
bad. That was a big awakening for me.
it's a hard thing, right?
It's a really hard thing.
Right? I mean, the bad news ones are, it's so difficult to, especially for people close to you. I mean, people that are a little bit farther away, it's not as bad, but
Mhm.
still, uncomfortable conversations are really hard. And if you're not ready for them, right? If you're not ready to say the words, you definitely back off. I mean, I know that I've done that many times where I'm like, I'll just avoid it. And
Mm.
that's not healthy. And you're right. It makes you, if you can't tell the truth, if you can't be honest about things, then I do see that, thinking that you wouldn't be trustworthy, right? I mean, I could see that in myself.
Yeah, it was a hard one. And Olivia, to your point, the ones where I wasn't, they kind of stuck with me. And Dr. Mark Brackett, he's the emotional, he runs the emotional center at Yale, I think. And he has this practice that I often do with clients where you have them write down all of the people they come in contact with in a day. The barista, your partner, your roommate, children, and then without giving it too much thought, right next to it, um, the feeling that you have when you see that person. So it might be joy, or it could be frustration, or it's delight, or it's anxiety. Whenever it's a negative feeling, it usually indicates an unresolved conflict with that person. So it's like you said, Olivia, it stays with you because you never really got it out.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, because you didn't get it out, it creates this emotional hoop, like an invisible emotional hoop that this person must jump through when they interact with you. So often people would be like, "Hey, did I do something? Like what's going on?" And you say, "Oh, no, no, no. I'm
Mhm.
good. I'm
Mhm.
good." And this energy is not good. So it's really important to have the hard conversations, to your point, Simone. It's like, I got to do it.
And I've been thinking a lot about this subject in the last, honestly, since we've had that conversation and this revelation last week about like being able to speak up for myself. And I do think there is a time and place for it. And that's, I guess, what I've been analyzing is that there are
Mm,
some relationships in my life where I look back and I didn't have that hard conversation, and that was okay. That was not a relationship that was benefiting me, that the other person was putting time in. And yes, maybe I should have handled it in a more mature manner than just kind of ghosting the friendship, which didn't
mm,
happen most of the time. But there is a lot of times where I'm grateful I kind of saved those hard words for relationships that matter more. And on that same side, I learned all of this. My best friend, like ever, lived with her for 3 years, is like she tells you how she feels all the time. because if she doesn't, she feels that like it eats at her, and it's like, well, then how are you supposed to know? And like that sentiment has really stuck with me. Like if I don't tell someone I'm upset with them, they're not going to know, and vice versa. So it's just, I don't know, it's important.
I agree.
So, one of the things that you really focus on is building worthiness, right? Building
Mm.
worthiness. It's an inside job. Um, why is worthiness, and I'll ask for the audience benefit. So, because I'm like, yes, worthiness, right? Why is it so crucial for lasting fulfillment? Because there's so many things that we need to focus on every day, but how often do we sit down and say, I need to feel like I'm worthy?
Mm. Yeah, worthiness, again, this might be a generational thing. That's why I love the idea that you two do this together, because I do think it's valuable to see how these generations happen and how we're evolving. But that sense of self-worth, especially with a type C, with a person that relates to type C, what can often happen is that um, we suppress our emotions and our feelings and our needs and our wants so much that we become others directed, which means we only feel through the feelings of other people.
Mm.
And I think this happens really naturally as a mom. When you're a new mom, you just kind of pour yourself into this other little being. And then all of your value is, am I doing this right? Am I guiding this little human as they should be guided? And then if there's not a sense of self-worth, that fulfillment is only able to come from the validation of the outside. And I think that gets really dangerous when, I have many friends that literally poured themselves into their children, and then their children left, and they
Mhm.
were like, wait,
Mm-hmm.
hold on, come back, or let me stay with you and helicopter over you
Mhm.
and be really involved in your life, because there wasn't that sense of self-worth outside of this relationship. So the self-fulfillment and self-worthiness are just hand in hand, and often it gets overlooked and merged, and that's how we get all these codependent relationships. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, you did. So, it's interesting because this is something I used to say to my kids when they were younger. I would do a lot of volunteer work. I had many different careers, many different things that I did, but I was always a big believer that I needed to do things for myself, right? That
Mm,
that once they left, then I would be heartbroken, right? I mean, 6 kids, you just don't stop.
right.
And so I always said to them like, "Hey, I'm going to this, I'm going to this." And they're like, "Ah, well, you're missing this." And I said, "You know what? I need to do things for myself because eventually you're going to be gone and I'm going to be bored to death and miserable. Unless you want me to." And I would say to them, like, I'm going to come to your house, use all of your internet, sit around in my underwear, leave my cans everywhere. That's what I'm going to do. Do you want that? No,
Mm-hmm.
thanks, mom. Okay, there we go. So like, you know, let me have my life now. And I am a big believer in that we need to, I mean, self-care is a huge thing, but really understand that we have value and that our value isn't based on our spouse, our relationships, our children. It's based on who we are.
Hmm. One of the first practices I do with clients is I take them through this viacharacter.org survey to find their personal strengths. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big science junkie, and this Via Character was designed by, I think, 55 positive psychology people, and it has 24 character traits, which all of us have all of the 24, but this, after answering 100 questions, it will put them in order. So your top 5 are what we call your signature strengths. And I will have people do this, and inevitably, um, one of two things happens. one is they're like, hey, yeah, that is me. That's totally me. I'm those top 5 things. Or they go right to the bottom and they say, I can't believe that, kindness is my 20th. Like, I feel like I'm a kind person. And you can see that distinction, right? It's like, okay, this is who I am, or I'm just going to focus on what's wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
And the 20 are so close. If you get a report, many of they're coded like 2.5, and the next 3 might be 2.5, 2.6, 2.7. They're very close, but it takes a while for people to get into this mode of, this is who I am at my best. And I'll have them take those top 5 strengths and put them on sticky notes on their bathroom mirror, and just pick one in the morning and notice where it shows up just naturally. One of them is humor. And so people can use their humor that is in alignment with who they are at their best. And if they're going through something difficult, they can inject humor in there and see, like, wow, yeah, I could, that comes really natural to me. That doesn't work for me personally, but somebody with a humor in their signature strengths is powerful. It's just interesting to me how disconnected we get to who we are.
Yeah, I think the world happens, and we do forget who we are, what we want, what's important to us. And I do look at the younger generation though, and I think that there's so much about them that is so much, I don't want to say better, it's just different. But then how we dealt with things, and I do think, like, when I look at Olivia and she's like, yeah, we're not doing that. Or my older son saying, I'm not going to take a job where I'm working 80 hours a week. I'm not doing that. That is not, and we just kind of did those things, right? I mean, Olivia, do you feel like that?
It's funny that you think it's a positive, I
What,
guess.
to work that hard and to do
Well,
all those
no.
things?
I mean, I think that obviously like 80-hour work weeks are ridiculous, but like some jobs entail that. That's to the user, but it's more of, I do think some things that my generation are doing are fantastic. Like, we learn from our parents' mistakes. And I mean, I'm sure you guys could say the same about your parents' generation. Like, you've learned a lot since then. But I also think that there's kind of an edge of going too far sometimes. Um, but I don't know, like, how to speak on that without being insulting to my generation, I guess. Because I do think there are some people, and I would say majority of us are like incredibly hardworking and want to fix the world. But I think some people are like taking the changes too far and kind of sitting on themselves rather than growing.
I could see that. But I mean, I think, like, from, I guess, the outsider perspective as someone older, what I see is that compromise is not, and whether you see it as a good or bad thing, it just isn't the same kind of thing. You're right. I mean, we, like, oh, I've got to work 80 hours. Oh, I can't go home to do this. Okay, yeah, that's just part of it, and
I
you
mean
just
that,
accepted it.
yeah, and I think that at this point it's not the acceptance, it's not
Mm.
just a given anymore. Um and I think, I mean, I worked, granted I only worked for a summer, so I don't have the best experience, but the company that I worked at was, and the people that were in my generation, it was 8 to 5. We're done at 5. Work does not continue past 5. Even if I didn't get my work done for the day, it stops at that time. And I do think it's good that we have like that sense of boundaries now with personal and work life, at least starting in some corporate industries. I can tell you, like, as a law student and from the attorneys I talk to, that doesn't exist in legal yet. It's a big fight. It's a lot of burnout happens because of it. But yeah, I mean, I feel like my generation doesn't really take no for an answer, which I also think is a great thing. Like, okay, I can't work from home, or I have to work like, I can't work less hours. I'm just not going to work here. Like, I'll find another job. I'm worthy of finding another job. I'm not worthy. And I do think that kind of goes back to like the self-worth of my generation. And even discovering within myself was the whole reason I went to law school was the job I was offered. I it was not what I was worth. And like I knew myself that I was worth more than that. And I think a lot of my generation does realize that.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could only go back in time.
I know. Yes, I'd come back as one of my children.
Yeah. Me too, for sure. Yeah, I look at them and, but I feel very fortunate because I feel like they have learned to self-advocate. They understand boundaries. And I think that our relationship, I think my relationship with all of my kids, as the younger ones, as they get older, it will be a little bit different, but that they get it and they're willing to express themselves to me. And if they don't like something that I'm doing, boy, will they speak up. I mean, if that happened in my house, no, you would not say a word. You would just go with the flow.
But I think that like, and I'm simply saying this because I came from like a long day of sitting with kids my age in a classroom. I think with that has come like, sometimes people are not respectful to like, and I don't like the idea of be respectful to your elders. No, like yes and no. Be respectful to everybody, but you don't have to just be inherently respectful to someone because they're older than you. You should be respectful to someone if they deserve your respect. And I'm in a classroom situation, the professor, the teacher deserves your respect and therefore your attention.
And so you're saying that they're not getting that.
We've talked about this before on the podcast. I think since COVID, like kids just don't know how to pay attention in classes without like 7,000 different things in front of them, which like me included, obviously. And I do think it's kind of created a more disrespectful learning environment. And I'm interested to see, like, as someone who's not in the workplace, if that kind of mentality would transfer over to the workplace.
I just saw this recently at a concert I went to. It was a live music concert and everybody was talking. I've never been to anything like that. I kept looking around thinking, does everybody realize there's an artist up there and they're singing their heart out? And these people were cackling and laughing and talking. It was really weird. I've never experienced that before. It was bizarre.
And maybe that's like a COVID effect rather than like a
I
my
think it is.
generation effect. Like I think people have kind of lost basic social etiquette in some spaces.
I live near Dartmouth College, so it was a very young crowd.
I spent a lot of time at Dartmouth, actually. I worked across the border in Vermont for a summer.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I'm new to this area. I lived in Woodstock, Vermont for a little while.
Oh, lovely.
It's beautiful there.
I love it.
Yes, but I do love the energy of a college town. So I went to this music thing, and it wasn't just young people; it was young people, and I gotta say, probably the bigger cacklers were my age or older. But it was just this interesting moment where I thought, wow, we used to have this very defined, this is the person on stage or this is the person teaching. I learned a long time ago from, I can't remember the guy's name, but I had never understood this before, that our school system was designed to funnel us into factories. So the whole United States school system was designed basically to make everybody the same and to create this hierarchy. You get pushed into a room, there's desks, and then there's a higher desk or a bigger desk in the front that demands the respect, and the bell rings and we all just move over to the next room. So the design was to make people the same, or to keep it consistent, because you want the factory workers all doing the same thing. For an industrialized nation, we're not that anymore.
No.
We're actually needing people to express who they are and use their strengths in a way that works well in relationship. But we're still for the most part, and I haven't been in school for a long time, conform to that.
Yeah, I think it's really damaging. And I was fortunate enough to go to a high school where we had like the Socratic seminar method of teaching. So it like you do get to say your own opinions, and in that way you find your own voice. And I would say a lot of my advocacy skills, at least in a classroom setting, are from those experiences in high school. But so
Mm,
many people don't get that, and then so many people expect to get it in college. But how many? I would say majority of schools, it's like 300 plus people in a classroom. You're not, your voice isn't being heard. You're writing down what you're being told.
Very true.
Yeah. I mean, I think in pros and cons to everything, right? But
right,
I think
right.
as America evolves
Mm-hmm.
towards, I mean, individualism is something that I feel everybody values nowadays, which again like comes back to the self-worthiness of believing in yourself as an individual, that you're meant to be here and you're made to be who you are. And
Mm.
I think that like some of the existing infrastructure is kind of limiting that.
Right. So there is that invitation, whether or that card, when you want to play it, to really understand who that is, who you are.
Mhm.
And for some people, I work with some young women who are just getting out of, uh, 3 years in the corporate world because they went to college where their parents wanted them to go, studying something that somebody else wanted them to do. And they're only 3 years in and they say, peace out. I don't want anything to do with this. I didn't want to be in finance. I want to be a guidance counselor. I'm going back to school. And I'm just, hands up, hallelujah. I spent 25 years in the investment industry and I think I wanted out in the first three. Like,
Mhm.
I don't even like this, but I stayed. So it's remarkable how quickly it's happening now.
Yeah, I want to connect this back to authenticity, but I do want to say a
Mm,
point on that because I think that when I went to school, I did exactly that. So
Mhm.
I was going to go into medicine because that's what both my parents did. And then I got to organic chemistry, failed it, got a D the second time. That was kind of the end of my medical school career before it even started. And I really wanted to go into acting, like really. And my dad
mm,
said, while I pay the bills, you're living under my roof, you are going to do what I say, and you're good at math, you're going to go into accounting. And loved my dad. I mean, he passed away in 2019, but I mean, I did something that I absolutely did not love. And so that's part of me changing my mind so many times because this is not me. Like this is not who
mm,
I am to do accounting. And one of my best friends, she's a partner at one of the big accounting firms, and she loves what she does. That was
mm,
just not for me. And so what I tell my kids all the time is that find something that you love to do. I don't care how many times you have to change your mind to find it. Keep looking for it. If this isn't the right thing right now, keep going. Like we have Olivia's older sister is in Cardiff, Wales right now,
wow.
studying art conservation and restoration, right?
Whew.
She was going to go to medical school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you talk about it's okay to change your mind, and so going to the authenticity part, obviously my brand is really based on building confidence from the inside out, and
Mm,
being authentic is a huge part of that. I think we have maybe the younger generation understands that a little bit more, but I think for me, I didn't know what that meant for a long time to really embrace. Yeah, you're saying
I
something
think it's
before.
really funny that you say that. And I do agree, but it's funny because we think about social media as this thing that is completely unauthentic,
Mm,
as people showing the best versions of themselves. But also, like my generation being the biggest users of social media could be considered to be the most authentic. And I do think that's because maybe, at least the way I use online and like people more closer in age to me, we've started to transform social media from this like inauthentic thing that it was 5 years ago, even I would say pre-COVID, and now it's just like straight up, this is what happened, this is how I'm feeling, I'm not going to put on a full face of makeup and lie to
mm.
you. And I think it's funny because if you said that to maybe like the average person from your generation, they'd be like, well, they're not authentic at all. Like, look at this social media stuff. But if you really look at what social has become and what my generation has been able to do with it, it is so based off of authenticity.
It's interesting. I mean, I see both sides of that, but I'm curious, Kathy, like when you think of authenticity, do you feel that that kind of is a foundation for building confidence?
Oh, definitely. That alignment again with like who I am at my best and how I can be in relationship with others from that place. It is, it kind of goes against that others directed behavior where I need to adjust who I am based on somebody outside, or um, I'm only aligning with who I am based on somebody else's response. There's this beautiful book. It's called A Ghost in My Throat, and it's written by a mom. I think it's written, she's from Ireland, but she talks about this idea of her to-do list, which I used to be a mad user of the to-do list. And when I read this line about at the end of the day, she felt invisible because she had erased herself by doing this to-do list. And I remember feeling so connected with that idea of I did not exist unless I was doing for other people and got that validation from the outside that said, okay, Kathy, good job. And without all that, I didn't know who I was. So I didn't know that authentic self. And so when, fast forward years later, I get divorced. And so at the same time, I had just retired from my 25-year career. My sons left for Australia and Spain to study abroad. And then my husband left me. And I was just without all of those identities. I had no idea who I was. And for some crazy reason, I decided to apply for a sexual empowerment course, a 1-year sexual empowerment course, because that's where you go at 50. And this woman was,
hey, why not?
Exactly. And this woman was interviewing me, and she said, so what do you desire? And I was on the phone. I still remember sitting on the steps of this apartment I was renting in Cambridge, Mass. And it was just complete silence. I just started to cry, like these tears are trickling down my face. And she decided to tell me what the definition of desire was. And I got so mad. I said, I know what the word means. I do. I know what the word means. I just don't have any. And it was this moment where she let me sit in it for a little while. And she said, you'll find them. And I could only find them through finding who I was, who my authentic self was. Because I had given that, I kind of got lost in the shuffle of life.
And I think that's so powerful. And I think a lot of us get lost in the shuffle of life. I know when I speak with women, one of the big questions and one of the big parts of my method that I use is, ask yourself what you want. And most women don't know because, again, they have been doing for everyone else. They have been doing at work more than they should be because they haven't set those boundaries, and they have no time to ask themselves what they want, or they haven't even thought about it, which I ask them all the time. What do you want? Olivia, what do you want?
To be happy.
Yeah, to be happy. I mean, I think that's so important.
There's another piece of this, which I overlooked for too many years, was the ability to receive. And I never really understood that energetic connection. I was just giving all the time. That's how I was validated. That was my to-do list, just giving. And when I realized that that energy was always just going one way, and basically I was hitting an energetic wall because I was involved with people, shockingly, that didn't know how to give
Mm.
because that felt familiar to me. So I would give and not be in a situation where I needed to receive. But now understanding this art of receiving makes this energy reciprocal, and I'm actually giving the other person a gift of receiving. So that has helped me, and it helps a lot of my clients learn how to complete that want. It's like, oh, I really want to be happy, but when somebody else tries to make me happy, like even if it's, hey, let me buy your coffee today, and you say, no, 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 I'm good, I'll pay my way, like, bam, you just severed the energetic block. But if you say, wow, thank you, yes, I'd love for you to buy me a cup of coffee, that brings you happiness, and you're giving this other person this gift. So this receiving, I think we're in a big receiving deficit in the world.
Yeah, I think we set ourselves up in a way that we feel guilty if someone is doing something else for us. And I will say that even with my husband, he's like, let me rub your back. I'm like, no, I'm good. Right. Why am I good?
Yeah, why are you good?
I don't know. I don't know why I do things like that. But, sometimes I just do.
That I think is a generational difference, because I will say, I think at least my friends, and maybe it's just the law school exhaustion, we are ready to accept help when given. Well, and the example I'll bring up today is that a friend of mine has really been struggling, and we went over to her place today, and it wasn't actually that bad of a mess, but you could just tell that she didn't want people there because it was messy. And both my friend and I were like, we're going to clean it. Like, I wanted to clean it. I like to clean other people's spaces anyways. And she was like, no, don't do it. Like, don't touch my stuff. And we're like, no, like, we're your friends. We're here to support you at your worst moments. We're going to clean your space because it's one extra stress. And it's like, you shouldn't feel bad about saying yes to that, especially because we were genuinely offering. This wasn't like, oh, I'll do it if I want to. Like, no, we were there and we wanted to help out. And I think that people my age are starting to get that it is genuine acts. Like, when people ask to help you, it's genuine. It's not just like a fake nicety that I think maybe people of your generation are used to.
That was an interesting way of saying it. I was like, I think she's going to go there.
No, but I do agree that, like, I'm in the South. I know a lot of these, like, Southern ladies, oh, like, whatever you need, but they don't really mean it.
Yeah, it's just like when you ask someone, how are you? You don't really,
exactly.
When you're asking like that, you don't really want to know, because if you wanted to know, you wouldn't ask that question.
No.
You would ask something like really specific, like, what's the best thing you did today? How was your meeting with John at work today? Instead of like, how are you? Well, how are you is opening a can of worms that you don't want to open. So most people will just say, I'm fine, freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. and that is kind of like the end of the conversation, because nobody wants to know more than that. So, yeah. But the receiving part is huge, and I'm going to pay more attention to that, because even my mom texted me today. I didn't sleep 2 nights ago, and she was like, let me come over and do laundry for you and cook for you. And I was like, no, I'm fine.
But
why? Why did I say, I don't know?
Because it's also, I will say, a lot of the times, like, you saying no, it's not only harming you, it's harming the other person. What does grandma love to do?
Cooking,
grandma loves
clean.
to do laundry.
She loves
laundry.
To do
laundry. That's something that she could have had nothing else to do in her day. And that's the one thing that she wanted to do.
Yeah, I think it is a feeling of accomplishment and that giving back. And so, yes, I need to be a better receiver. So thank you, Kathy, because that was very helpful for me. This was like my own little session.
Glad. I'm so glad. In the positive psychology space, we say it's not selfish, it's not selfless, it's self-full.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Self-full. So I want to ask you, I want to talk about confidence a little bit more, but first I want to ask you, because maybe we can connect this here. You did a TED Talk, and I want to hear about the TED Talk, and I want to hear about your feelings about the TED Talk.
Yes. So this TED Talk, this is like throwing me right into a type C frenzy. It was in Canada, and I had a whole bunch of friends that said, "Hey, I'll drive up to Montreal. It's not far." So my sons came with their girlfriends. My sister came. My another group of friends in the positive psychology space came, but I went the day before, and I did not realize that even though there's a lot of rigor for the speakers of a TEDx talk, there's not so much rigor on the venues.
Mm.
So I got there, it was at a community center, and it was in a room between the hockey rink and the swimming pool.
Oh boy.
So it was really loud. And I remember meeting this woman who flew from California, and her TED Talk was on menopause, which was so well done. But she was like, what's happening? Tell me that this is just our practice space. And so the guy that was running it came in, and we learned that no, this is where it was going to be. And it was just little chairs that came out, like the metal chairs, and the audio was terrible. And so I started calling all my friends, like, go back, turn around, go home, do not come here. And my son said, Mom, you always exaggerate. I'm sure it's fine. I'm like, no, it's not fine. I swear it's not fine. So the next morning it starts, and it starts off terrible. The video guys haven't arrived. They keep there's nobody there, and my friends start coming, and I can just see on their face they're looking around like, what's happening? And if it weren't for my friends, we probably wouldn't have had an audience. I had other friends who they had a green room for all the speakers. No. All the speakers here were the audience. So the video of it is not what I am proud of, but I have come to put that down and be proud of the actual message that I went there to speak was about emotional health. And I feel really strongly about emotional health and investing in one's emotional health. So I just recently started sharing that I even have a TED Talk. This happened in October of last year. So I've been kind of sitting on it, never really shared it. I was embarrassed by the quality of the video and the audio. So there's a type C for you right there. I'll just make it disappear, and someday I'll do it again and it will be perfect.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that embracing failure is such a huge part of building confidence and understanding that it's okay. And also in this story, like, you didn't do anything, right? You showed up, you did all the things, you were ready to go. And sometimes life just gets in the way. And so I have a very similar one with my first TEDx. I had to record from home because it was during COVID. Now, I didn't think, and we had such a short period of time. Okay, you saw how good I was at technology when we first started this, okay? I probably recorded that thing 100 times. And even then I'm like in the corner of the kids' playroom recording, and the playroom has 7-foot ceilings. I look gigantic. I look like it just is just so off. And my message is what matters. Right. And so that's what I thought when it went out there into the world. I was like, well, that wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but here it is. And there we go. What are we going to do?
What was your message?
So it's all about, again, it's all about confidence, but, what's your Kilimanjaro? So what's the thing that you're going to do in your life that's going to change your forward trajectory? And so the message was good. The video was horrible. And you know what? It is what it is. So it is out there. And you know what? That's why Olivia and I love doing this podcast, is because we're all about, and maybe authenticity is an overused word these days, but we're all about being ourselves. We really think it's important that we show up on the day however we're feeling. Like, We don't get made up for what we're doing. I mean, some days I'm like, look, I got makeup on, so I'm going to record double episode. But in general, we just want to be who we are. So if I'm wearing a t-shirt, well, I'm wearing a t-shirt. If I'm wearing a t-shirt and my leggings, like that's who I want to be and that's who I am. And I don't need to change that for anyone else. And it took me years to feel comfortable showing up somewhere as myself and not trying to be someone else.
I love your message of confidence. And I feel like it's this gift of giving yourself and others just permission to be human. Like, let's just lower the bar just a little bit, people, And I think when you're confident, you do give other people even that permission. When you can be authentic and confident, it just radiates out. When you're insecure and fearful, then it turns judgy and, we repel people instead of attract them. So I love the message that you're giving.
Thank you. I'm going to tell one last story because we could go for like another hour, but we can't go for another hour. I was at an event once, and again, I am a jeans and t-shirt, jeans, blazer, sneakers. That's my vibe. And I struggled for a lot of times. I wouldn't want to go anywhere because I didn't want to get dressed up or didn't feel like I would fit in with people because I wasn't wearing what they would wear. And I went to this one event and it was fancy. And I was wearing my jeans and my fancy sneakers and a blazer. And I was like, actually, you, Olivia, you pushed me out. You was like, you have to go. You have to go. Just go do it. And I got there and I met some really nice women. One of the most interesting things for me, though, was I had multiple women say, well, oh my God, I love your sneakers. Oh, I didn't know we were allowed to wear jeans. And that was like a light bulb moment for me in that we don't need permission to be ourselves, right? Keep doing what you're doing. If you want to go in jeans and a t-shirt, go in jeans and a t-shirt. Just be comfortable in your skin and you shouldn't have to explain anything to anyone.
Amen, sister.
Yeah. Okay, so I didn't ask you 5 million of the questions that I created for you, but I think this was an awesome conversation. So I'm good with that.
I am too. This was lovely. Yeah. Thank you.
So Olivia, tell us your calendar for today.
The more we try to stay comfortable today, the more uncomfortable we'll be tomorrow.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's a good one.
Put yourself out of your comfort zone. Wear your jeans and t-shirt. Go to an event where people are fancy and be yourself.
Amen.
Yes, and have that conflict conversation. Do it.
Yes, have that conflict conversation. So, Kathy, thank you so much for being here today. Please let everybody know where they can find you, where they can watch your TED Talk.
Oh, yes. They can find me at kathywashburn.net. That's my website. And for some crazy reason, I thought I was so creative. And my Instagram is also Kathy Washburn, DOTNET. Thought it was brilliant at the time. And my TED Talk is called What Investing Taught Me About Emotional Health. And I really appreciate the gift of time. Thank you.
Yeah, this was great. And great. I can't wait to meet you in person one day because I think like we would hit it off. We hit it off today, so we'd hit it off.
We definitely would. My sister just bought a place in Naples, so you never know. I think that's close to Sarasota,
yeah,
right?
It's not far. It's like an hour and a half. So I would definitely meet up with you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Her Unshakable Confidence. We will see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Always remember, you are unshakable.
Thank you for listening to Her Unshakable Confidence with Simone and Olivia Knego. We hope this episode has made your day just a little bit brighter and given you the inspiration you need to confidently go about your week. Always remember to be authentically you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And feel free to connect with them on Instagram at Simone Knego and at Olivia Knego. Till next time.